The December 31st episode of The Bold and the Beautiful, often referred to by fans as The Rinse, is one of those deceptively dialogue-heavy episodes that cuts far deeper than it initially appears. On the surface, it's about a confrontation, a reminder of past betrayals and a few sharp exchanges. But emotionally, this episode rips open old wounds that never truly healed and forces several characters to confront uncomfortable truths about who they were, who they are now, and what damage still lingers beneath the polished exterior of their lives. At the heart of the episode is Bill Spencer confronting Ridge Forrester, and that confrontation is not about business or casual rivalry. It's about history, ugly, unresolved history that neither man can fully escape. When Bill confronts Ridge, there's tension in every word exchanged. These are two men who have circled each other for decades, clashing over power, love, and loyalty. Bill doesn't approach Ridge calmly or diplomatically. He comes at him with the kind of blunt honesty that only Bill Spencer can deliver, the kind that cuts because it's rooted in truth. And Ridge knows it. That's why the confrontation hits so hard. Of course, as Bill himself acknowledges, the situation is not good. It was never going to be good. Because when Bill and Ridge talk about the past, the conversation inevitably drifts to Brooke Logan, the woman who has been both the glue and the grenade in so many relationships on this show. Bill doesn't sugarcoat what happened. He states it plainly: Brooke stole him while he was married to Katie. That line alone carries enormous emotional weight. It's not just an accusation, it's a confession wrapped in bitterness and regret. Bill isn't pretending he was an innocent victim. He knows he made choices. He knows he hurt Katie. But he also knows Brooke played a role, and he refuses to let that be minimized or rewritten. For Bill, bringing this up isn't about reopening old romance. It's about accountability. It's about reminding Ridge, and perhaps himself, that the pain caused during that time didn't magically disappear just because people moved on. Katie was devastated. Their marriage collapsed. And the ripple effects of that betrayal still echo in subtle ways, especially now that business and legacy are back on the table. Bill then delivers another sharp reminder, one that shifts the focus away from personal betrayal and toward power and legacy. He reminds Ridge that Katie wouldn't back down, and that her company would bear the Logan name. This isn't a throwaway comment. It's a declaration. Bill is making it clear that Katie is no longer the woman who quietly accepts crumbs or sacrifices herself for the sake of family harmony. She fought for her independence. She built something of her own. And she refused to erase her identity to make others comfortable. The Logan name in this context is more than branding, it's defiance. It represents survival. It represents a woman who was betrayed, humiliated, and underestimated, and who chose to rise rather than retreat. Bill's pride in Katie is evident, even if it's complicated by guilt. He may have failed her as a husband, but he refuses to let anyone diminish what she's accomplished since. For Ridge, this reminder lands hard. The Logan name has always been a sore spot in his world, especially when it intersects with Forrester creations and family legacy. Hearing Bill emphasize that Katie stood her ground, and won, forces Ridge to confront an uncomfortable reality. The women he and others once took for granted are no longer willing to play supporting roles. This confrontation doesn't just stay between Bill and Ridge. It spills outward, touching Katie and Brooke directly, and that's where the emotional temperature spikes even higher. Katie, in her own conversation with Brooke, brings up their messy past, and she doesn't do it gently. Katie has reached a point in her life where she no longer tiptoes around Brooke's feelings. She doesn't need Brooke's approval, and she's no longer interested in pretending that what happened between them wasn't deeply traumatic. Katie reminds Brooke of the betrayal, not with screaming or tears but with calm, controlled honesty. That makes it sting more. Katie isn't asking for an apology. She's stating facts. She's naming the damage. And she's reclaiming her narrative. Brooke's response, however, is what truly ignites frustration, for Katie and for viewers. Brooke responds nonchalantly, offering a casual, almost dismissive sorry. That single word, delivered without depth or reflection, speaks volumes. For Brooke, this moment exposes a long-standing pattern. She often acknowledges wrongdoing only superficially, as if saying sorry is enough to absolve years of pain. There's no pause, no emotional weight, no recognition of how profoundly her actions affected Katie's life. The apology feels automatic, rehearsed, and empty. To Brooke, the past is something to move past quickly, something that shouldn't be lingered on now that everyone has moved forward. But to Katie, the past is something that shaped her, hardened her, and forced her to rebuild herself from the ground up. Brooke's casual apology feels like a dismissal of that journey. This interaction underscores the fundamental difference between the two sisters. Brooke has always lived in a world where forgiveness comes easily, often because she expects it. Katie, on the other hand, has learned that forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. She's no longer waiting for Brooke to truly understand or validate her pain. She's already done the work to heal on her own terms. That's why Brooke's sorry doesn't break Katie, it strengthens her resolve. It confirms what Katie already knows: she doesn't need Brooke's remorse to move forward. She doesn't need validation from someone who can't, or won't, fully acknowledge the damage they caused. The brilliance of this episode lies in how it weaves these conversations together. Bill confronting Ridge. Bill defending Katie. Katie confronting Brooke. Brooke minimizing the past. Each scene builds on the last, creating a layered portrait of unresolved trauma and shifting power dynamics. Bill's role is particularly fascinating here. He's not absolving himself. He knows he failed. But he's also refusing to let history be rewritten in a way that paints Katie as weak or passive. In standing up to Ridge, Bill is indirectly standing up for Katie, acknowledging her strength in a way he didn't always do when they